Evening, everybody. It's been nice to meet you all. I'll have a quick chin wag. I'd like to thank Jonathan and Ann for setting all this up. Does that mic sound alright, Jonathan, to you? Yeah. Setting all this up, it takes some doing setting these sort of do's up, and it's a first for me and Chris. I've roped him into doing the podcast initially, conned in.
Kicking and screaming.
Yeah. And tonight, you know, it's the first for us to do something like this, so I hope you enjoy it. And I'll just set this. So if we get my video on.
Someone was just asking us earlier, actually, the theme tune, I don't know if we mentioned it, but it was My Son Separately wrote it and sang it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you've used it again, haven't you, on Matrix?
Yeah, we used it quite a lot.
A different one.
But I mean, your son Seb, who wrote that, my son's at back there, my eldest. We're really proud of us, aren't we, Chris?
Yeah. Jacob loves talking about the stuff he's on.
Yeah, he does. Yeah.
He's so proud of him.
Yeah. What's your dad do? He's a conspiracy theorist.
In fact, one of the best ones, we went to see Richard D. Hall, and I were in the toilet, and Jacob came running and goes, "Fuck me, my dad's speaking to him."
That was a few years ago.
Yeah, it was a long time ago.
Bless Richard. He needs some help.
My dad's speaking to him.
So tonight, I thought we'd go back through some of the stuff that we did in 2020, 2021. Mainly Boris Johnson. Some of you have seen the podcast we did, the Meet the Flockers, in 2021, I think it was now, on Boris Johnson. So I thought we'd recap and maybe update some of the stuff. And Susan Mickey. She terrifies me, yeah. She reminds me of an old school teacher.
Yeah, Etchers.
Yeah, Mrs. Etchers, yeah. And if we've got time, the Draper and Garraway deception. That's a very interesting story. So we might have to skip through, because I'd like to get onto all of them, because I think this Draper Garraway one interests me probably more than all of them. So the first part of this, but roughly about 45 minutes, we're going to be talking about our friend Boris Johnson. And we could have talked about all these other reprobates here, but the list is just endless, isn't it? Let's be fair. It's just absolutely endless. So that's Chris's new drawing of Boris.
I'm trying to make him look as handsome as possible.
Is that milk around his mouth, I hope?
It's just shit coming out of his mouth.
Shit coming out of his mouth.
I don't mean that literally, but it's just, you know, whatever guns he's talking is just coming out of his mouth.
Yeah. Well, when you think of Boris Johnson, what do you think of? What do you?
He's just a liar, mainly.
And
the stuff we did at school, back at school. I mean,
yeah.
I feel like he's probably said before. I think he got hijacked by his dad. I think his dad threw him
under a bus.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I would say he's a pathological liar.
Oh yeah.
100% pathological liar. And if you look at his history, it looks like he's been set up a decade at least before he got into power to actually be the Prime Minister at this particular point. We were talking about on a podcast we did release today about him when he's at that COVID inquiry. I hate saying COVID. Skin crawl. But he was like he were actually set up to be the fall guy from the outset.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say he was set up to be the Prime Minister at that pinnacle time during the
But what an ideal character to use as an idiot after the event. do you not guys not think so? He's that sort of pantomime villain type character that you could just say, well, we sort of knew he was an idiot, so it's not surprising it's gone rat shit.
And now he's doing the inquiries, just lying his way through that as well.
Yeah. You look. I mean, if you've listened to this last week's podcast we did, where he actually I see him swearing on the Bible, whatever that means. He's swearing on the Bible and saying, "I'm going to tell them the truth." It's absolutely insane, isn't it? But yeah. So he actually got a BAFTA nomination for Have I Got News for You? And he was on. I counted at least 20 different TV programs through the late 90s up to him coming into power. Not just being interviewed, but actually on these programs as a guest, as an actor. And his whole history at school, he was an actor. And I've got a psychologist at the end on a video, and he actually sums it up fantastically as he's a narcissist. Yeah, and this guy's a psychiatrist, actually, not a psychologist, but yeah, he was set up as Winston Churchill's dummy, really. And these are the type of friends he's got. I don't know if you remember these guys from the Meet the Flockers series. These guys are Russians, his Russian friends, the Lebedevs, who Boris managed to get a baronet into the young son there. And that's his father, and his father happens to be worth around about, as Forbes estimated, about $1.1 million. So they're a wealthy Russian family, they're into banking and all sorts of other stuff. And he was an ex-KGB agent, the older guy. And so these people are well connected, and nobody's talked about this. Why isn't that in the inquiry? Why the inquiry's best friend's father is actually a KGB agent? That's when you know that the mainstream media are actually hiding things from us. And these are, if two numbnuts like me and him can dig this stuff out, anybody can dig that out. They own 2 newspapers, Evening Standard, The Independent. I don't know if you heard about that. I mean, there's a good story behind that as well. Matthew Simmons was a co-founder of The Independent. Matthew Simmons happens to be Carrie Johnson's father. Yeah, so they're all interconnected. Boris Johnson was going to the Lebedev's luxury villa in Italy. He seems to be there with his dog. And they were having all sorts of parties there. There was a documentary about it, actually. And I think Jordan went.
Right.
Yeah, so lots of top class people went. I think she didn't let them down either. Well, she probably did, actually. The wrong way of putting it, isn't it? So that's called the Palazzo Terranova. Is that palace there?
He's not trying to look intimidating at all there, is he? With his dog?
Yeah, he's about 3'6", so he ain't that intimidating. So his mother is the one I know you have a lot of sympathy for.
Well, we looked through. Well, she went into a mental home, didn't she?
Yeah.
She was an artist. Well, her art's quite good, actually.
Yeah.
It seemed like quite.
Some of her drawing. There's some of her art.
Yeah. I mean, her art looks quite tormented.
Quite. That was done at the Maudsley
right.
Psychiatric Institute.
Yeah.
Which.
But when we looked into her, I just felt really sorry.
It's probably where we're all ended up. Yeah. But yeah, so she was. And then Stanley Johnson, we're going to go into detail about, and we're going to go into Carrie Simmons. I've left out all the other people that are attached there because they've gone on for hours. But so Charlotte Johnson, again, she's a well-connected bloodline. That's where Johnson gets his Jewish ancestry from.
Right.
Her father was Sir James Edmund Sanford Fawcett. When I had a name like that.
Mother looks as mad as a box of frogs.
Yeah, but she's mad as a box of frogs. She's been electrocuted.
I suppose that's towards the end of her.
Yeah, that was close.
Isn't it?
Yeah. That's after just taking jump leads off.
Yeah. I think they left one on.
Yeah, I left one on, yeah. I don't know where they left it.
It's quite creepy how Boris Johnson's sister.
She might have been at the same party you all last went to.
Boris Johnson's sister.
You know you're going to get some grief if she finds out what you've been saying, don't you?
Yeah, no, she wouldn't listen to us, so it's fine. I think we went a bit too far with the last one.
Why we? I have no to do with it, I ain't saying no.
You said that she pissed herself.
Yeah, but that's because you actually said she pissed herself.
Laughing.
Right.
Just making it worse, aren't you?
Let's move on. Yeah, so he worked for the Foreign Office, the James Fawcett. So he was a well-connected diplomat stroke. I mean, if anybody works for the Foreign Office, I'm thinking,
Fine.
yeah, MI6, MI5. They've got to be cleared from a secret point of view if they're working for the Foreign Office. He was also on the Queen's Council, and her grandfather was Elias Avery Lowe, and he was a Lithuanian Jew. And now people say to me, have you got it in for Jewish people? I haven't. Normal, everyday Jewish people get as much shit as we get, let's face it. Yeah, this isn't about, this is not a racial thing on any colour,
No.
because the top table do not care about us. They just don't care about us. I think everybody in here, we're sort of a mature audience from a thinking point of view. We all know that these people just don't care with bits of shit under the shoe out. We are, aren't we? Yeah, so she was put into the Maudsley Hospital, and the Maudsley Hospital was a renowned hospital as part of the MK Ultra. So that poor woman there was fried at the Maudsley Hospital. She had electroconvulsive shock treatment there, and God knows what else happened to her. So we have to have a little bit of sympathy for some of these people, because they're marrying to these people like the Johnsons or Stanley Johnson, and they probably don't know what they're getting into, and they're put through the ringer as breeding machines, basically, to keep people like Boris out. What a prize! And here's Boris's dad. So this is that chap there in the insert. He wrote a book about the Johnsons, about Stanley Johnson basically beating his wife up. I think he broke her nose. And he's been asked here about what he thinks about Stanley Johnson being nominated for a knighthood.
What were your thoughts when you saw this, Tom?
I was disgusted.
Really? Well, tell me why in particular.
Well, because I couldn't understand for what he should be knighted. I mean, as my book showed conclusively, Stanley Johnson was a terrible husband to Boris's mother. She told me shortly before she died, in a very long and very harrowing conversation, how Stanley, her husband, had regularly beat her over the years of her marriage. I mean, breaking the nose, as your paper reported today, was just one consequence. The more important consequence was that she was driven to a nervous breakdown and went to the Maudsley for nearly 4 months. And not only did he beat her, but he beat her up in front of Boris.
So if you think about that, Boris Johnson is at a prep school in Brussels. His mother gets taken away, then he's been brought up by a nanny. She's about 6'2", I think, the nanny. And she baths with him as well.
With him?
With Boris, apparently. The stories that the nanny baths with Boris. Yeah, exactly.
Did he get the knighthood?
No, he didn't. He didn't, no.
But the fact that he got nominated, or was close, is... Cause I remember him being in that jungle, and I remember hearing people say, it's just like a cuddly grandfather figure. And that's what we were lining him up for, wasn't it?
What, like Matt Hancock's a nice guy, no?
Yeah. I thought he was a wanker, he was actually alright.
He's not a bad guy, is it, Matt? No.
He's eating some fucking Beatles.
Yeah. Yes, he's not a bad lad. So this is Stanley Johnson. These are some of his books, and he has written more books, should I say. And if you remember, during the 2020 nonsense, he wrote his book. The virus was brought back out. I think it was the Marburg virus initially, weren't it? Yeah. He's a nasty piece of work. Is Stanley Johnson. I would say everything starts with him, with the Johnsons. Some of the books, that was a guy called Tom Boller who wrote that book about that biography. But some of the books that he wrote, one was Life Without Birth, a journey through the third world in search of population explosion. Action on population front means somehow trying to slow down and even halt this rate of growth by reducing the number of babies who are born each year. This was 1970. Roll on 2020.
Well ahead of his time.
Yeah, well ahead of his time, but just a bit after Nazis.
It's the same talk, isn't it? Just in a-
Exactly the same talk. Then the population problem, then the virus, the Marburg virus, re-released in 2021, surprise, surprise, reveals uncanny parallels with the current corona, I hate saying corona as well, but virus, the outbreak of a mysterious and deadly disease. Shocking, Jonathan. What's your thoughts on Stanley Johnson and the Johnsons per se?
I'm working. Yes, it's a weird setup, isn't it, basically? And I know we've had conversations about it, Dom. And I think you're right about this is where it all kind of starts off, you know. And I know you talked about the violence and all that stuff. And I know we've had this conversation that this seems to be a theme, doesn't it? This violence with these people.
Trauma.
Absolutely, trauma-based. Yeah.
Trauma-based mind control.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there was an element where Johnson met Carrie, the police were called out, just as, I think we played a video of that.
Yeah, I
remember that? Yeah. The police were called just before he got voted into becoming Prime Minister.
Yeah, a lot of screaming coming from the flat.
Yeah, remember?
Yeah.
So it sort of carries on as well. I mean, this guy's talking about population, got 7 kids. He's got 7 kids.
Kill yourself, Stanley.
Yeah. And here he is.
You have to get population under control as well, because if you look at it in sheer economic terms, how can you sustain increases in per capita income at a time when you have rising population without rising economic growth? Whereas if you have a declining population, which is what I would aim for, then of course even a stable economic growth situation will give you increases in per capita income. So that's where I stand on that.
Do you have a sense of what the carrying capacity of Britain is, or of the world as a whole? Or?
Well, Britain, I put it at 10 or 15 million. I think that'd be absolutely fine. I mean, that would do us really splendidly. At a limit, 2025, I think it's complete nonsense that we are now confronted with an island, would you believe it, of 70 million people. I wrote a paper, I think it's the only paper the Conservative Party has ever published, and it was published as an old Queen Street paper in June 1972, oddly enough. And it was called Britain Needs a Population Policy. And
you could still argue that today, I mean, right now?
I certainly could. But what has happened, of course, is that we have all been, as it were, shunted off course by what you might call the rise of political correctness, because you can't talk about this now without saying you're anti-feminist, because you're telling women what to do with their bodies, or you're racist, because you're saying it's the browns and the blacks and the yellow races who mustn't have, or you're a left-winger, because you're trying to get at the capitalist society. So it's a very, very difficult one now, and I would say that at the very least, the governments of the world have to start talking. The government of this country has to start talking seriously about immigration.
I mean, who would say something like that?
When was that fire?
Probably about
really like
6 or 7 years ago. But that just sums it up.
Then he suddenly becomes Prime Minister.
Yeah. Injecting people with
Poison.
Yeah.
Nice. Right there in front of you.
Yeah. How much more proof does anybody need? I mean, we don't need proof. Everybody here, I know, understand all this stuff.
But proof that there's a conspiracy.
Yeah. What this says to me is, this isn't like when the guys, Richard Dior, were doing talks and they were trying to convince people going back in the day. Everybody now knows all this stuff. We're just looking for more information.
More evidence.
Yeah, more evidence on it. You know, it's scary people, and that's Boris Johnson's wife.
Yeah, I remember this one.
You remember this? Yeah.
In a Crowley play, didn't she?
Yeah.
At university.
Yeah, in a Crowley play at university. I mean, is there anything that needs to be said about this, really?
Well, I mean, there is the chance that she just,
Yeah.
you know, but a bit sus, innit?
It is.
Fat chance.
Yeah. But Carrie Simmons isn't just Carrie Simmons, like we thought she was. When you do a little bit of digging around, Hilda Harrison is her great grandmother, and she was a lover of Herbert Henry Asquith, the first Earl of Oxford and Prime Minister from 1908 to 1916.
Who was her mother?
No, her great grandmother.
Right, I didn't know that.
So we're dealing with another lineage here, marrying into the Johnson. I think they've got 2 kids with her now.
What's the chances?
What are the chances? That would make her a cousin of Helena Bonham Carter and the Bonham Carters.
Right.
As well. So now they're getting, again, you've seen the whole thing is a stage set. They're marrying, they're related to actors and filmmakers. I mean, who was it Bonham Carter were married to? What's the
Tim
guy?
Burton.
Tim Burton. Yeah. Look at the films he made with Johnny Depp. And
Literally the start of the rise of Gothic cinema, wasn't it, I suppose, in the 80s, 90s.
Yeah. Her father, Matthew Simmons, is co-founder of the Independent newspaper. So she ain't just some
Where
girl.
did he say met her?
Well, we had a video of talking with Stanley Johnson about saving Wales.
Yeah.
Not as in Wales in Cardiff, Wales.
But it looked staged, didn't it?
Yes.
There were hardly anyone
There weren't anybody there.
No, he just looked for a camera, he was looking for a camera.
Yeah, yeah.
Where are you going?
We're not that bad. Maybe we are. What are you going to talk about? You said piss off, didn't it?
What?
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, yeah. So she's also related to. Her father was also strategy director of the BBC World Service. So they're all intertwined with the BBC as well.
Sorry, where did this claim to have met? Did you know that?
No, I don't know that bit. But she worked for the Conservative press office.
Right.
Yeah. Conservative. I think it's called something else, but it's like the press office where young Conservatives go. Labour's got a similar one,
right.
Where they basically train them to come through. So she knew Stanley Johnson before she was going out with Boris Johnson, because that whale thing was before that.
Oh, right. Oh, I didn't know that. Right. I thought we were after.
Yeah, save the whales. But her father is an executive director of the Larry Ellison Foundation. I don't know, anybody know who Larry Ellison is? Have you heard of Oracle? Yeah. Oracle, who set up all the IT systems in governments. I think they've got the contract for Parliament and things like that, Oracle. And Oracle was set up by, the first customer of Oracle was the CIA. And Oracle is actually named after, Larry Ellison was working for a company, I forget the name of the company now. Him and his partners were working for a company. They were working on a project for the CIA called Oracle. So he left that company and set Oracle up. And his first customer was the CIA. And Carrie Johnson's father is working for Larry Ellison. Anyway. So
obviously seems like an arranged marriage, doesn't it?
No, I think she found him really attractive. Head over heels, I think the word is that. Big sweaty lines. Well, I'll have him. Her grandfather was MP John Bevan, or otherwise known as Baron Ardwick. His real name, that, by the way, it's a real name. Yeah, Baron Ardwick. Yeah, so she's and her uncle, I think it was Major Tom Harnett Harrison, and he was attached to Z Special Unit, which is an undercover operator. Z Unit. Oh, he's back. Oh, that's right. So, yeah. Oh, and her other relation was Air Vice Marshal Sir Charles Putnam Simmons.
Who's that?
Air Vice Marshal Sir Charles Putnam Simmons.
What did he do?
He was an Air Vice Marshal. Any more proof?
But it's interesting that none of this is even fleetingly discussed.
It's never discussed, is it?
She just came, you met her in a pub.
Oh, you met her in a pub, yeah. We were having a pint, she was having a glass of Bacardi and Coke.
Can I buy you another one?
Greece came on, rest of history. Yeah, so we know that these people are interconnected throughout history. I mean, you've seen some of the bloodline stuff that we've done, going back to Jim Morrison and people like that, and all these people have a bloodline running through them. Now, me and Jonathan were talking about this, weren't we? The Prometheus bloodline, and you had a good explanation of what you thought that might be.
Which I've probably forgotten.
Yeah.
Because they were about 3 weeks ago.
Well, yeah. But you were basically saying there has to be something more, because it's not just about bloodlines, because we could all do bloodlines and we might be related to a Baron or something like that. Everybody might be, because somewhere down the line, but not as much as these guys. These people are intertwined in a way that you could never write down in a story. You'd make, in Game of Thrones, you wouldn't write down the connections some of these people have got.
Yeah.
So there's got to be some sort of energetic attraction, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, well, we're talking about why are these people picked?
Yes.
Yeah. That was it, you know, because out of their whole family, like Johnson's family, why was it Boris? You know?
Yeah.
And I think we came up with some theory, didn't we? But I can't for the life of me remember what it was.
Possibly he's more
I'm knocking on a bit, you know.
Yeah. he's more inclined to be that's psycho, if you like.
Yeah.
And the other people aren't.
That was it.
You know?
Yeah.
Or is it the fact that he was trained?
Maybe he's been trained, because he did say that he was going to be Prime Minister from a very young age.
Mm.
The nanny is quoted as saying that he used to say that he was going to be Prime Minister.
6'3"
Yeah,
nanny.
yeah.
Yeah, 6 foot.
While we were having a bath.
Yeah. None of us turned out the way.
That's a vision, isn't it?
More matey bubble bath, please. Then we get on to his education. Boris's education. It's strange, really, because he started out in Brussels at the Brussels school, I think it was called, Ursula van der Leersen, you know, the Cruella de Vil looking woman. Mm-hmm. She went to there, so there's quite a lot of people who've gone there of a certain ilk. But then his mother got depression. I think it was after Stanley smacked her in the face. That might have had something to do with it. I think. No.
He looks like a rogue, doesn't he?
Yes.
Stanley Johnson, even more than Boris does.
Yeah. I think he sold his soul as Stanley Johnson to the Rockefellers in the late 60s when he were working for John D. Rockefeller III directly. And that's actually what it says in his bio, working directly for him. You don't get to work with people like that unless you've sold him. You're willing.
Why was he up for a nightclub? What had he done? Other than write
some terrifying books. He's gone along with the programme, hasn't he? And he's got his son into power to deliver the time bomb. But Boris's main education was at Ashdown House, or his initial education. And has anybody heard this stuff that we spoke about when he was at Ashdown House? He mentioned as Boris how terrible the abuse was, physical abuse, as in beatings. The teachers handed out beatings on tap. Not like any schools that I used to get whacked at school, but these schools are different level beatings.
We imagine you're trapped there, you can't even leave, you can't even cry out for help to your parents.
No.
And Johnson's dad,
He was 10 when he went.
was he 10?
He was 10.
Imagine getting dropped off at 10 years old.
And his mother's just been put into a lunatic asylum. Yeah. And he's been boarded off to Ashdown House at 10 or 11 years old.
His dad sent all his kids, and his dad never even went to look at the school. Can you imagine?
Well, he wouldn't, would he?
Sending your 10-year-old.
I wish I'd said mine.
I'm going to say I'd send Jacob.
Yeah, he said it.
Not a kid you like.
Yeah. It's not one you were close to.
But how did he feel in front?
Yeah.
But you imagine him.
But you feel proud. Yeah. Anyway. So Johnson's dad actually rung the school up, and this is documented as well. This isn't just us saying this. He rang the school up and told them his daughter Rachel wanted to go there, and the school said we don't have girls that go to Ashdown, and he basically said you do now, and she had to go to school. That was the deal. And all the 4 kids went to school there when they were at the right age.
Yeah, it
I think
became
they
a
could go
mix.
from 6-year-old, and it became a mixed school then. She went there. She had a uniform made at Harrods because they didn't have a school uniform for that
For a
school.
girl?
Yeah, for a girl.
So how do you have the clout to ring up a prestigious school if you're just Stanley Johnson who's nobody and force a girl with a boys' school?
Well, he knows John D. Rockefeller III. That's his trump card from his.
Or it could be his pistol.
Yeah, it could have been his pistol. Does he have a pistol, Stanley Johnson?
But he
it
said
was-
he got fit for a suit.
He went. He did get fit for a suit. Well, he went to MI6 training. Did Stanley Johnson? Anybody know that? He was recruited into MI6, and he got as far, apparently, if you believe all this nonsense from the set of line bastards, as far as having a suit made on Savile Row with a gun holster in the suit. But he decided he didn't want to do it, and they just said, "All right, Stanley, you don't have to do it. You don't have to give us your money back for the suit either." So that's in his autobiographies. That whether that's true, it looks like he could. Well, to me, it looks like he's an agent of some kind, behind the scenes pushing his family. And every one of these kids that have come out, the Johnsons, all of them, if you go through them, and he's had 3 kids with another lady, lucky woman, 7 kids. They've all been successful, either in politics, journalism, etc., etc. I mean, the look of, I had to put up with Jacob, obviously, let me down badly, that's just one, you know. He's got 7, they're all successful. Get me Stanley's number.
Yeah. You've been let down by Jacob, I've been let down by Seb.
Yeah. No, tell them that story about Seb.
Which one?
Building your website.
Yeah, so my little sculpture business, my son's designed some websites. And I said, I'm going to get a website built. And he said, no, Dad, I'll do it. I said, all right. And then immediately thinking, why did I say this? He said, if you met somebody who knows a proper hippie, full on hippie. And he said, yeah, I'll do it. I said, how much do you want for it? He said, 300 quid. He said, all right, before I put fucking phone down, I got an invoice. It said, all right, I'll send you the money. When was that? June? He's now gone travelling for a year. He's gone travelling. No, but it's all right, because I said to him, Seb, I'm not angry, right, but shall I just get someone else to do the website? No, I'll do it when I'm away, because I'll be relaxed, I'm not working. Yeah. So I really can't envision him with his feet in a fucking pool in Mexico, making my website for me. And he just takes the piss out of me about it. When Seb doing your website? Never gonna happen.
So our kids are like right letdowns is what we're trying to get to.
Let's go, yeah.
So proud of the guy. Yeah.
What did you say, you're walking over?
Yeah, you're walking over.
Forgot about that, didn't you?
Yeah, I forgot about that. Fantastic, man. I forgot where we were now, but anyway. The corporal punishment handed out to, in fact, Rachel Johnson said, as the first girl there, in those days, it was about the 3 C's. The cane, cricket, and classics. So the cane came first. First thing they did. Now, Boris Johnson has never mentioned, you'd have thought a Prime Minister who knows the school he went to, there was sexual abuse there, he would have been talking about reducing and changing the system. Tony Blair's another one, Cameron's another one. Surrounded by them. And yet they've never mentioned it once. Possibly. Or the den, you know, that's
maybe
how they get
the system they're in, the world they're in, that they just can't.
Yeah. I'm going to play this video of Alex Renton. You'll see he's in there. Alex Renton is he's a journalist, and he's a well-connected journalist. I think his father was a baron, or his grandfather. So he went to Ashdown House. So he's a well-connected guy. And this is the other side of all this, where these people fall through the cracks because they're just destroyed. Their lives are destroyed by this. Whereas something like Johnson probably uses that to become a psychopath.
Well, it probably could be a testing ground in itself.
I would say it is, and I'm a fan. Yeah.
Boarding schools are amongst the most influential institutions in Britain, responsible for educating many of our politicians, judges and business leaders, even 3/4 of our prime ministers. And in 1969, I was sent off to join their ranks. Ashdown House, a famous boys' prep school in Sussex, was expected to be the making of me. My parents weren't to know, would never have imagined, that in a matter of months I would be sexually abused by my teacher. More than 40 years have passed, but I still remember the excitement of my first day at Ashdown House, aged 8. In reality, I think it was the end of my childhood. The first night was terrible. I can remember being terrified in a very cold bed, trying not to cry. You lived permanently under the threat of violence. So you could be beaten for almost anything, for talking after lights out. You could be beaten for not doing very well in your Latin prep. There's a permanent low-level state of fear. It was a brutal regime under my headmaster, Billy Williamson. You had to learn to live with it, our new life. But then there was the sexual abuse. Mr. Keane was my maths and history teacher in that first year. My memory of my sexual encounter with him is only once, and it was in the classroom where he usually taught. I remember very clearly the physical feeling of being pressed up against his sort of hairy tweed jacket while he had an arm around me and his other hand was going straight down the front of my corduroy shorts. And I remember quite distinctly being given the fruit gum afterwards.
I did actually sit through watching that, and it's quite chilling. He interviews quite a few people, not just that went to that school. Some of them went to the school that Blair went to, and a few other schools as well that sort of mentioned. I don't mean to say everybody who went there got sexually abused. I don't believe that at all. But when you've got a Prime Minister or Prime Ministers who went there, who obviously knew that things were going on, even if he came out and said the beatings that I got, forget the sexual abuse, the physical abuse, were wrong. Even if he wants to change that side of it, he never even mentions it. There is a blog that he wrote that does mention how many beatings he got. Johnson, yeah. It reminds it, but then if you wind it on 10 years, it reminds me of this. I remember playing this to Craig, who sat over there. We were doing some building at my house, and I remember playing it him, and he was like, he was horrified.
Anyone with any sense who was in trouble would come to the whips and tell them the truth. They'd say, no, I'm in a jam, can you help? It might be debt, it might be scandal involving small boys, or any kind of scandal which a member seemed likely to be mixed up in. They'd come and ask if we could help, and if we could, we did. And we would do everything we can, because we would store up brownie points. That sounds a pretty nasty reason, but it's one of the reasons. Is if we can get a chap out of trouble, then he'll do as we ask forevermore.
Forevermore. And I think that's what we're putting up with. I think we've got people in power I think one of the prime examples of that's Chris Whitty. If I were going to put he looks like someone who's got something on, doesn't he?
No. But when he sits there sweating with his weird eyes. Yes.
I like that picture you drew of him in the bed. Yeah. That glass of blood. Yeah. But Boris Johnson's also got Crowley links. I don't know if you know this. It's a good story.
This is a weird story.
This is a weird story. So this is a guy called Alex Crowley, as it says there, OBE, and he's like a PR agent type character.
So mention that story.
Well, I've got it written down here to mention. It's the only story of your wife that should actually agree with you saying.
So the missus, she works for a estate agent, and she went.
It's not an estate agent; it's an architect.
No, they are estate agents. So
Right.
they do everything. They basically do architects, heritage,
All right.
everything. Anyway, she went to like a work meeting, and the guy doing the guest talk, one of the guys doing the guest talk was Alex Crowley, and another person had just done a talk beforehand, and then my wife this guy came on after, and by chance they had this Beatles picture actually. It was that Beatles picture, the real one where it's got Alex Crowley in it, and he came on and he said, "Oh, that's a relation of mine," and my missus went, "What?" And when he finished, he went to the elevator. She chased after him and said,
You smell like burgers.
and she said, "Are you actually related to Alistair Crowley?" And he said he looked really sheepish then, and he went, "Yes." And then she came on and told me this, and I looked into who this guy was, and he basically helped get Boris Johnson into power, and who else?
David Cameron. Yeah. And he helped get Boris Johnson into being a mayor.
Yeah.
He was his PR agent.
And he's related to Alistair Crowley.
Just a coincidence.
And he got Cameron into power as well.
Yeah, got Cameron into power, and he's working behind the scenes. It just happens to be Alistair Crowley's distant relation.
Nothing to see here.
Nothing to see here. Move on. But again, this is what intrigues me when you do this type of research, because he also works for companies like British Airways, Ford, UPS, Queen's Park Rangers Football Club, Ministry of Sound, you know.
Ministry of Sound.
Lots of different.
I mean, when you stuff we talked about with Mark, Ministry of Sound.
Yeah. He actually says something like he changes people's minds in one of his things.
The whole presentation he did at my missus's work thing was about how you can manipulate people's minds and change their minds. So he's got a LinkedIn page, like
yeah. Just look at his LinkedIn page. It says it all on there. It says, "I've helped get a prime minister elected, convinced thousands of local residents to back airport expansion, mobilised hundreds of thousands of consumers to put pressure on regulators, produced compelling video content, directed live broadcasts at venues like Wembley Arena."
I mean, in that like that's like a dark magician talking.
That is, yeah.
Not what you're into.
With a smile.
Like John. Crazy stuff.
Yeah, crazy stuff. So I mean, you probably know that Boris Johnson. I think what time are we going to break in a moment? We'll just finish this bit.
Yeah, just finish this bit.
Yeah.
We'll have a 10-foot break.
So his bloodline is a double. I mean, just his royal blood lineage is King George II, and it's always illegitimate. His father Stanley actually is his bloodline, and King James I, or King James V of Scotland, but King James I of England, and he's also related to Frederick V, the Elector of the Palatines, which the Palatines were quite the Palatine exodus from Germany, the Rhine, where the Rockefellers came out of as well. So they came out of all that. Done some research on that, I haven't released that yet, but the Rockefeller family, how they were linked to Sephardic Jewish bloodlines as well. So that's going to be interesting actually. You can tell I'm really excited. That is quite an interesting angle, because I found some research. I haven't passed it to Lorraine yet because I don't want to get bombarded, but there's research. A Jewish university did some research on bloodlines, and there's some fantastic family blood. They've done it for, obviously, they want to know where all the bloodlines go, and an innocent. They're not doing it in a conspiratorial way, but all these bloodlines are all linked. Like Rockefellers have got Jewish ancestry, which is a total fabrication of what we've been told. Very interesting. And a guy published a book in the 60s, 500 books were printed of all this ancestry, handed out to all the major Jewish families, and they were the people who they could deal with.
Right.
Yeah.
Like a Yellow Pages.
Probably like a Yellow Pages, yeah. With a star on it. Yeah. So, Chris mentioned this in one of the podcasts where Johnson has these hallmarks of being a narcissist, and he equated it to, was he called Don, this guy, in Sexy Beast?
Yeah.
Trying to convince this guy to come back and do this whatever bank job.
Good film, gangster film.
Yeah. And so I'm going to play this first, and then we'll play that one of Johnson.
We're looking at Saturday, but you're needed in London this Friday.
It's a bit sudden, isn't it?
Sudden? No, it's very far from sudden. Teddy's been working on this for 5 months. Dan almost that. I've been in on it for 2. It's not sudden. Preparation. As far as the actual job's concerned, it's a piece of piss. A monkey could do it. That's what I thought of you.
Cheers, Don.
You're at the Grosvenor. Your name's Roundtree. Like Smarties, like Shaft. If they give you a pull, you're just over here to see some friends, social visit, family, that sort of thing. Somebody will call you, pick you up, probably Mike.
I'm not.
Do the job.
What?
Do the job.
No, Don.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
I can't.
You can.
I can't.
That cunt.
Don, don't do this.
Do what?
Look.
What am I doing?
This.
This what?
Will you apologise for your comments?
Will you have a cup of tea?
Will you apologise for your
Would you
comments?
like a cup of tea?
Yeah, sure.
You go on, have a cup of tea.
Thank you. Do you regret?
Would you like a cup of tea?
Do you regret your comments? Do you regret your comments? sir?
Go on, have a cup of tea.
Thank you very much.
There you go. There you go.
Do you regret your comments, sir?
I want you to have a cup of tea.
If I have a cup of tea, will you answer my question?
No, I'm here solely on a humanitarian mission because you've been here all day and you've been incredibly patient and and I feel very sorry for you because I have nothing to say about this matter except offer you some tea.
Okay.
Okay. Go on.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much.
Go on.
Odd.
How weird.
I think it's like that Don from
Total distraction,
Sexy Beast. I don't know what that was for. It was some sort of thing about 6 or 7 years ago that he'd been fired for again. He's been fired from every job. He was a liar in the Times, his first job. He got done for plagiarism, got fired, and then got a better job. And now he earns £1 million a year with Daily Mail.
Once you've lied as a journalist, it should be game over.
Yeah. Just flabbergasted me. But I've got a psychiatrist here, talking about.
So I think Boris Johnson has this strong fantasy kind of image, this fantasy world in his head, which is very disconnected from reality. He desperately wants to be seen as the saviour of this country, just like his hero Winston Churchill was in World War II. So Boris Johnson wants legendary status. He wants to be remembered as the Prime Minister that heroically brought the country through the pandemic and managed to deliver Brexit. What traits am I talking about? Of course, I am talking about narcissism. Pretty obvious, clues in the title, I mentioned it earlier. So what specific features of narcissism does Boris Johnson display? Well, there's self-importance, there's grandiosity, and there's entitlement. The pillars, the bread and butter, the pizza base of any narcissist. On top of all that, he's got this immense lack of shame, this lack of embarrassment, which I think is kind of reflected by the fact he's had so many affairs. Plus, Boris Johnson won't apologise for his failures. He literally ignores them. Only today did he quit after humongous pressure. He literally jumped off the sinking ship at the very last moment. And I think it's one of the first times when he's ever actually admitted defeat. Do you know of any other times that I don't know of? Let me know in the Schmoment section below. But I think all of this is rooted in deep insecurity, which comes from some of his childhood experiences, and we will come back to that later. So we also know that Boris Johnson has a tendency to break rules. Even before the whole Partygate incident, he refused to sack the Home Secretary, even when she was found to have broken the ministerial code. So what does this mean, this disregard for norms and for rules? Well as narcissism, it reflects another well-known personality disorder. Which one? Can you tell me? It is, of course, psychopathy, psychopath. So I'm not formally diagnosing Boris Johnson as a psychopath, but I think it's fair to say that he has numerous traits. Narcissists and psychopaths are kind of ideal personalities to become leaders. And this is because there's this strong desire for power and dominance, but not just that. There's also this ruthlessness and this ability to manipulate people, to manipulate their means until they obtain powers of positions of power.
Is that about you or Johnson?
I think that sums him up pretty good. I think that summed him up to a T.
Yeah.
What do you think? 100%. Right there, Jonathan? Yeah.
Are we all right in the tea room, by the way?
Cup's dry.
Yeah.
With what?
It's like being at last summer wine, isn't it?
Are we all right for a break? Is what I'm trying to say. Fantastic. How long do you want, guys?
Not a bother, just crack on. We'll carry on talking if you want.
Yeah.
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 Talk away.
Absolutely.
You're never short for all to say, Chris.
Disrupted your flow.
Hey? Yeah, have you got any questions about that? Yeah, that's a good one. You don't have to whisper it to me, you know.
No, she's just a
Do it.
suggestion. She might have gone, no, I don't want anybody. No.
Narcissistic people definitely have something that's gone wrong in their childhood. So if they all go to these type of schools and they're all being primed to go into politics, then they're primed to be narcissistic people, and narcissistic people don't have any empathy or emotion or feeling for what they do. So they're the right sort of people to be sort of puppets in Parliament.
Well, I think that guy, Alex Renfrew, on that video, Ashdown House, said 75% of all prime ministers go to boarding school or have been boarding school.
That's what I meant by it. It's like there's a system that we will never understand or know about, where they're churning these people out. I mean, because a lot of them, they're going to the military.
Yeah, it's not just prime ministers,
Military,
but then you've got
journalism,
politicians. So if 75% of politicians go, 75% of military or
Remember
lawyers
that
or
one we
whatever.
looked at, and all the high-ranking military came from.
Yeah, that was Gresham College, wasn't it? That's where Whitty went. And
yeah.
C.S. Lewis.
Yeah, yeah.
What an interesting story about C.S. Lewis.
His dad would have been a narcissist because his mum ended up in mental asylum. So she had to probably put up with sort of infliction from.
I think God knows what that poor.
I think his dad was just a natural narcissist.
Yeah.
Threw his entire family under the bus.
But he came from landed gentry. He's got a royal lineage from two angles as his father. So his father's connected. They're well connected. Landed gentry, I think they were. They had a massive farm down on the south coast somewhere, and he has Turkish blood in him as well. So the blonde hair, there's a set. Believe it or not, in the mountains in Turkey somewhere, there's a village where they all look like Boris Johnson. Can you remember that video? Yeah. They don't actually look like Boris Johnson, but a lot of them have got blonde hair, and so there is something funky going on there. But going back to the trauma makes these psychopaths. I mean, is it surgeons? 75? They've been certified as psychopaths as well. We were talking about that earlier, where simply because they've got to be able to make a decision. I'm not giving you that operation, and they've got to go to sleep at night. Who owns all the schools? It's a good question, that. Something they haven't looked at. Might be an interest. A lot of them are owned by, they're all trusts, a lot of them. So it's not necessarily who owns the school. I suppose it's who sits on the board of trustees, and also who's leaving their wills or whatever to these schools. It's like Oxford. You look at Oxford, I know it's a university, but Bill Gates gave 200 million to Oxford, something like that, and he's just one person. So a lot of these schools are getting massive donations because it's tax friendly as well. A lot of these people they put money into Oxford and they get a building called after them and things like that. But yeah, I think the trauma-based society that we live in, as it's been proved over the last 3-4 years, that we're living in some kind of traumatic society, it seems to be an incubator to produce people, even out in the normal world. All those people here, we're freaks, aren't we, to them? Yeah. We are. There aren't many of us. I suppose to them it's a better place because there is less of us. But when you can see all this stuff, it's quite a scary place, isn't it? It is. And for younger people, you see a lot of younger people now getting into, or younger than we were when we started reading it.
But now, because of the previous nonsense, the mask is off, isn't it? Everything's so out in the open, but still,
Yeah.
nothing.
I was just talking to someone earlier, Ailsa, and her friend who's come with her tonight. They lived in the same road and didn't even know they were both into the same thing until 2020 happened. So the downside with 2020 happening for these controllers is that not only did it wake people up, but it also made people look for the tribe.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, there's 100 of us in this room.
I know, on a night like this.
Beautiful sunny Huddersfield.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Go on.
they're not sheep now, I think they're ostriches. I think they they have got an inkling of what's going on, but I'll put my head in the sand and
Yeah.
I think you're right. Yeah, I think there's a lot of that, definitely a lot of that going in.
Yeah.
What can I do, little old me? And it's too late for a lot of them as well, isn't it? They're too far down the rabbit hole, they can't back out. We've all got friends like that.
Do you think the Rockefeller's Foundation is part of their schooling system as well? Like, they took off their hours, didn't they?
Well, I mean, again, the Rockefellers, when I start looking into the Rockefellers, I start finding that there's probably truth in the, well, within these books that I'm telling you about that are written by Jewish scholars, they were saying that the Rockefellers were funded by the French Rothschilds. So the Rockefellers are really funded, but from what I've looked at with, I think Eustace Mullins was saying stuff like that going back into the 70s and 80s as well. So what we see, we talk about the Rockefellers, but why are them names always thrown around the same name?
Say, you've got the
It's the ones that we don't know about that I think.
They're bad enough, but imagine who's behind them.
Yeah.
What's the name? Someone on the higher pyramid than them, isn't it? So
I mean, the bigger question is
possibly the dark hood.
But I mean, the bigger question is why us? Why are we like this? There's no reason. We could have just gone along with it. It's easier to go along with it, but we can't go along with it now.
I told that story on our podcast. One of the young lads I work with in the kitchen, and he's only 18. So imagine, from 15 he was getting delivered all this stuff, and his mum and dad had tapped, and his brother is, I know his brother as well, and he said no. That really freaked me out. That I said to him, because he wanted to listen to the podcast, and I said, do you want? I said, I'll just warn you for listening, there's a lot of anti-jab stuff. and then I went, did you get jabbed? He goes, did I fuck? And I was like, really? Because I knew his brother had. And he said, yeah. I said, did all your family get jabbed? He's like, yeah. All your friends? He said, yeah. And he goes, they were all saying I won't be able to go on holiday. I said, screw you, I don't care. I thought, oh my God. That's from no influence of anyone. Something, just some, little miracle in his head. He listens to us now, by the way.
Poor lad.
Yeah.
But yeah, any more questions? There must be.
Where did Stanley Johnson go to school?
Good point. He went to Eton, I think, and he went to.
I think he went to Sherborne.
Sherborne, yeah, that's it. Yeah. I mean, I know the school here. The reason he wanted him to go to Ashdown was a feeder club for Eton.
Yeah.
That's why he wanted to go there. And I'm sure he went to Eton as well. And think, like you're right, Sherborne. So, good. Have you got a question there?
I just wanted to. I went to see David Icke recently.
Right.
He was the original, wasn't he? Like, do you think the powers that be would be happy if David Icke never came along and opened up? Do you think they're happy that he's there, or they prefer that he's so like you lot didn't do your stuff? Or
I
think he'd be dead if he was any good himself.
Do you know? I think.
Are they planning for this to like have?
Maybe.
It's a difficult one.
Maybe they're just clocking us all for the robot dogs. That's what I always think. We're all signed up now.
Are they that arrogant that they don't really care about us? Because we're what, 5% or 5% of the population?
Or if they can see where you are, they know how to keep you in that little box.
Well, they know that most of the population are not going to jump over the fence.
Well, those that are going to jump over the fence, wouldn't you want to control them?
Yeah.
Electrify the fence. Not controlling us. Yeah. Or has been for 30 years. Like they're going to release it, aren't they? The awakening's happening. So like, to control the awakening, to feed it.
Yeah.
But I think they also know that most people have got no presence of mind to see what's going on. And also, we've got, this is a purpose. If somebody asked you to stop researching now, could you stop researching?
No.
And neither could I. If somebody came to your door and said they were going to jail you, could you stop researching? You couldn't do it. We thought that's what was going to happen in 2020. You couldn't do it.
No.
You know? If my son said stop researching, I'm never going to talk to you again, I couldn't stop researching.
I think you said that.
until he came and said, "Let me a fiver." Yeah. You believe the website?
The website.
Pulling off the weak to keep, like us guys, the strong ones.
Do you know what? I don't.
You said that quite early on.
What's that, sorry?
That they're culling off the weak, and then they'll find a use for us later down the line.
Maybe. Well, I also think that they know they're going to get the biggest pushback from people like us. So, I think the Canadian truckers, that was quite emotional to watch, was the Canadian trucker thing. And I think
they changed it. I think they nudged it in another direction.
Possibly. They don't want people with a purpose fighting back, I don't believe. That's what I don't think, because we're willing to lose things that they're not willing to give up.
Yeah.
And that is a hard one to battle, is that people. And also, similar ages probably here, within 20 years, 30 years, whatever, we're of an age where we can fight back. However, yeah.
Do you think they care? Because if you look at everyone here, we're all similar age, and I think they're more worried about the next generation.
Oh yeah, I think so.
Because I look at my kids, like what, 17 and 20, and how fixed they are with their tech.
Yeah.
They've actually entrapped, and without knowing, I know now, they've entrapped our kids in that tech. And I had a conversation, well, this was a few years ago, and my son when he got his Apple Watch. And I said, right, you've got your Apple Watch, I thought it's great, you could go and pay for things with his watch. And I said to him, if they gave you a tattoo on your arm and you didn't need your Apple Watch, you could go everywhere and pay with that, what would you think? He was like, oh, that's great. And I went, really? Now, my son's Christian, so I said, well, that is a mark of beast. You know, you buy and not sell unless you're the mark of beast. And he thought about it for a second. And I just think they don't care about us, because their vision is long term. They are only.
I think we're being bypassed, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, we are being bypassed.
Yeah.
And that's why it's important for us to educate our kids, the next generation, because it's them, I think, that they're targeting. And these people are narcissists, and so their grandiosity, they almost get lost in that. And so, because they don't have empathy, they almost think that they're superior to everybody.
Well, I think they do think. I mean, there's something about that Prometheus bloodline. I mean, we hit on Prometheus. I think. Have you come across a channel called Godvlemask? Yeah? No? Godville Mask, yeah, anybody? Yeah. He's on Rumble now, I think he's been booted off YouTube. But he comes up with some fantastic...
But I mean, like you said, though, the greed and the thought that they had it all, that's what pushed them to go so far, I think, in the COVID nonsense. It was a delusion of grandeur, wasn't it? That everyone would just roll over.
I do think they're panicking.
I think they're panicking.
Well, if we're honest, we haven't a clue. It seems like the panic, and then it also seems like you look at what's happening in Palestine, and you think, well, they don't really care. You know, they come up with an excuse, make a false flag up, and then just pummel 20,000 people into ground. Whoever's running this on both sides don't care about Israelis or Palestinians, because they're killing all of them. So.
Because from all things over the last few years, you do see snippets where it is literally actors.
Oh yeah.
I can't believe.
Well, I think the rusty tank war, as Chris calls it, in Ukraine. I think I couldn't believe any of that.
I never saw
stuff.
anything that convinced me of any actual violence there, to be fair. Whereas the Hamas thing looks more like it was either well, to be fair, those Hamas guys just look like ISIS, don't they? Same ninja outfits.
Toyota Hiluxes.
None of that makes sense. It was clearly a false flag so they could trounce the Palestinians like they've been planning for years, haven't they?
Yeah.
Horrible, disgusting. I mean, I can't watch that stuff because
there's something raw and real about the bombing of that and people being carried
you can
out.
see that
Whereas in the Ukraine, there was none of that shown on TV. Was
just a
there?
shaky camera and something. And an old tank.
Yeah, but you're right. I can't. It's very hard to believe. I mean, I don't watch TV, so I don't. I know I put a lot of videos together, but normally people send them to me. So I don't really. I don't watch any TV or any news. Yeah.
But don't you think the whole
Well, I was talking to him at back. Go on, Glenn. Next.
Is to divide and conquer. Because it causes people
Yeah,
watch telly to divide people that watch it. You know, the whole thing is stuff in Palestine has been going on for years.
Well, again, I said a story the other day about a football game where all the captains are wearing rainbow armbands. Yeah, and just that little bit there makes. I watched it because my youngest wanted to watch it, and once you turn off, I'm out. As soon as I saw the captain shaking hands with rainbow armbands on, I'm out. Yeah, it's just virtue signalling. But imagine if that captain said, "I don't want to wear that armband." They're gone.
And someone refused.
Yeah, I mean, it's not about an armband, is it? It's the whole. That's one piece of about a million things, isn't it?
Doing what you're told.
Yeah. Are we right now? Just one more question. This guy back at his arm would be hurting.
What you're saying about Ukraine there, when it all kicks off, it's obviously Bush. CNN and BBC are saying Russian tanks on the streets of Kiev. And one was spouting on like it goes along with the square at the time. And someone said, well, how do you know? So the only way you can know is by going there, so flew you
Did you go there?
flights to Krakow from training to Lviv, and a couple of days earlier they said they'd bomb Lviv, and it was fucking so one tank going down the street, military vehicles.
Here you go, walking over.
Anyway, got the train overnight from Lviv to Kiev, and I stayed in. I've been there before, been to Kiev a couple of times before, so I knew I was sort of. I booked it on booking.com hotel. You can book any hotel you want.
Didn't tell you you were a war zone then?
Did
No, fully enough.
give that warning. And so it's basically staying just off near the Parliament Square, Independence Square, just down the hill from the Intercontinental thing where the World Media or Chateau. And every 50 minutes you have like a little military checkpoint, only in this central zone of, I don't know, about half square mile, maybe a bit bigger. And they had a bit of all the street villages I would expect military checkpoints, that stuff. But it wasn't a military vehicle anywhere in central Kiev. And supposedly, what's the place just up the road? We're supposed to get bombed to smithereens, but came in on the train in the morning. And the whole sort of looking out the left-hand side of the train should have been this front line. There wasn't a bit of smoke or anything. Not a plane in the sky. Nothing.
I remember that video early on when there was two American journalists. Remember? And they had like bombs going after. There's a woman in the background blurred out with fucking Zaria Caravan. Look at her. He's like, there's bombs gone off. Usually there's two together.
Well, it was every time it's going on. Literally not stop. Just walking down the street.
Wag the dog, wasn't it? Just wag the dog.
100%. 100%. Should we have a break then, 5 minutes?
Sounds good to me. If anybody, what should we do? About 9 o'clock?
Something like that.
Back at 9? Yeah, wonderful stuff.
I will go home, then I will die. I'll be a part of the ocean.